What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Let's talk about it. And I'm doing this video because I want to share with the public a recent situation I had this past summer dealing with this opposing lawyer who would not stop sending me psychotic, unhinged, harassing, threatening, and even admitting to stalking emails. I reached out to the Halton Regional Police for their assistance, and to be honest, they were absolutely useless. They assigned an officer, Tyrone Garner, to the call, who was not helpful at all. He refused to apply the law, and the sole reason of this video is because I believe every police station in Ontario should be equipping their officers with body cam, especially the Halton Regional Police. If you guys haven't already, hit that subscribe button, share my videos, comment, and please help get my channel out. I appreciate it very much. So this past summer, John David Ekping-Young, you've guys seen in the previous video those 20 psychotic, unhinged, threatening, harassing, stalking emails this lawyer sent me. This lawyer's getting way too comfortable, abusing his lawyer's license, which let me tell you guys this. This lawyer is actually has been under investigation by the Law Society, and he's currently being prosecuted by the Law Society Tribunal. You just Google his name, you can see the whole report there, and basically he's ripped off a client about $50,000 that should have been billed to legal aid. He's refusing to pay that client back. And ironically enough, this lawyer's been telling judges for what, 3 years now, 4 years, I refuse to pay his bogus court costs that were ordered against me. My bank accounts have been frozen for almost 14 months now. This lawyer will not accept payments. His client won't accept payments. You can only imagine the extreme mental and financial hardship that I'm under. So I reached out to the Halton Regional Police for some assistance, and they assigned Tyrone Garner of the Halton Regional Police. And I just want you guys to know this is going to be another monster video. And eventually I'm going to be just doing these videos right off the top. But these videos that I'm building foundation of this channel. I have to write everything down. So I'm just going to get right into it, and here we go. Halton Regional Police Officer Tyrone Garner and his supervisor Ron Starch refused to enforce the law and allow John David Ekping-Young to continue his criminal ways. John David Ekping-Young has committed perjury, fraud, submitting fraudulent documents. He's been harassing me, he's been threatening me, and he's openly admitted to stalking me from March of 2022 to present. He's recently cooled off, and but the facts are the facts, and the actions are the actions, and this lawyer needs to be exposed for the abuse that he's been doing to me and to others. Tyrone Garner had clear evidence of John David Ekping-Young fabricating evidence, obstructing justice, committing fraud, and forgery, which all fall under the Criminal Code Section 137, 139, 380, subsection 1, and section 366. I spoke with Ty Garner on May 15th, 2023, July 1st, and July 28th, and he simply refused to help me. Constable Garner was snarky with me in his emails. He twisted things I said there was zero proof of John David Ekping-Young submitting fraudulent documents, and I was being stalked. When I was being stalked by John David Ekping-Young, Garner did little to nothing, twisted my outreach for the Halton Regional Police Service assistant, suggesting I was stalking him. And I have all these emails here that I will be sharing from this constable, which are absolutely ridiculous. Garner was off work with a herniated disc. Yet this officer is seen on an ice running his side business with a herniated disc. Garner and Starch suggested I file a complaint with Lika, which I did, and Lonnie Ratchford, a senior investigator, former detective, dismissed the complaint. Leak complaints do not work. Okay, I can tell you guys firsthand, when you have police officers handling complaints against police officers, and you look at statistically these complaints, how many are being dismissed, there is a clear pattern of biasness, broken, and corruption elements, and they just do not work. And basically, you know, the Halton Regional Police are not equipped with the body-wear cam, and they should be. This video experience is another perfect example why most Canadians do not trust the police and why all police services should be equipped with body-wear cam. John David Ekpenyung and his client in family court committed perjury, submitted fraudulent documents when I was never married with, had kids, or lived with the applicant, an ex-girlfriend. Multiple judges were aware of this behavior. Okay, this all started with a fraudulent home insurance bill that my ex submitted and got paid $10,000 when I admitted to breaking a $500 door in front of the Waterloo Regional Police. You know, you got Justice Martha Ann Tweedy, who caused unnecessary and prejudiced adjournments for 18 months. You know, you got these other judges who, the civil case, Justice MacArthur, Justice Gibson, the trial judge, Justice Ian Smith, who all allowed John David Ekpenyung to drop off his vexatious litigant application at my door and said he saw me through the peephole, and which was complete bullshit. That is not proper service, and this lawyer has never confirmed any of his motions, which is another law that all these judges collectively ignored. And when I brought these things up to Justice Ian Smith, he was seen snickering at me, saying that he does not know. How does a judge in the Superior Court not know about these rules? They do know. And, you know, there was a plan from the beginning to just annihilate me in this Kitchener-Waterloo family court, and pretty much that's what they did. John David Ekpenyung submitted over $300,000 in fraudulent court costs. He started a garnishment with no communication of payment. All of my bank accounts have been frozen for 13 months, and I am experiencing extreme mental and financial hardship. John David Ekpenyung admitted to harassing me, threatening me, and stalking me in over 20 emails, which Tyrone Garner seen all of the emails. I spoke with Garner on May 15th. I sent Garner John David Ekpenyung's psychotic emails on the same day. Garner spoke to John David Ekpenyung on May 22nd, 2025, and that was the same day my fourth bank account was frozen by John David Ekpenyung because he was butthurt that, I reported him to the police, for his criminal behavior. Garner called me on May 23rd on his day off, basically saying he was injured and telling me to file a private prosecution. He was snarky in his email, and he twisted things I never said. And I have several of the emails from Constable Garner, and I want to read these to you guys. May 23rd, from Constable Tyrone Garner. Daniel, you are right. I definitely should not have called you while I am off, but perhaps through an email you will be able to understand the reasons for doing so. When we originally spoke, I was working my last night off the block. During days off, I injured my back, in which I do not require any of your sympathy for. Not knowing exactly when I will be back to work, I made a mistake by reaching out to you in a gesture of good faith, so you were not left in the dark, given the fact that when we spoke on the phone, you expressed to me you were becoming unhinged, which is absolutely fucking bullshit. I never made that comment. And, I told this officer that John David Ekpenyung was becoming unhinged. And this is exactly what started this whole theory, this whole idea of why the Halton Regional Police need to be wearing body cams because of stuff like this. Twisting my words. That you're not left in the dark, unhinged, and stated you understand why people snap. With my return to work unknown at this time, I decided to reach out to you in an attempt to help put you at ease for the time being. To educate you a little bit about the Halton Police, we do not wear body cameras at all. Therefore, even if we were to speak in person or over the phone while I'm on duty, there is no recording of our conversations. The Halton Regional Police do have dashboard cameras in every marked car that are activated when we activated our emergency equipment in the cruiser, mainly to capture traffic stops. Hold on, wait a minute. The Halton Regional Police do have dashboard cameras in every fully marked police cruiser that are activated when activated our emergency equipment in the cruiser mainly. See, when I'm reading this, I'm thinking about Sergeant Leslie Legase of the OPP Police and how he was trailing us when I was being driven by Constable Evan Gorman, and he was driving reckless, and he injured me, slammed on the brakes. So maybe I can get the footage from that. As I've mentioned to you before, I've been a police officer for 17 years and know my authorities for law and know my role as a police officer. But thank you for the reminder, but it is not needed. In the meantime, you have the option to attend Milton Court and lay a private prosecution to have John summons to court to answer the alleged charges you are imposing, which is the same process if the police were to arrest someone ourselves. They would have been given a court date and released at the scene given the circumstances. That is what I recommend at this time, considering the circumstances and the fact that you claim to have all the evidence to support the crimes that have allegedly committed. I will not be contacting you further until I am fully recovered and back to fully active duty. See, this is the crap I'm talking about. This officer doesn't want to do his job. This officer doesn't want to apply the rules in the law that he was sworn under oath to do. He's telling me to do his job pretty much. And he's getting snarky with me when he's making these comments about he's being an officer of 17 years. So this officer's been an officer of 17 years and he does not know the laws, or he's ignorantly ignoring them. And we all know private prosecutions don't work. This officer is fully aware of the harassing, threatening, stalking emails that this lawyer has been sending me. And for him to twist my words around and to say that I said I'm becoming unhinged is absolutely bullshit. I never said that. I said this lawyer is becoming unhinged with his emails, and that this is why I did that video, my last video, John David Ekping-Young's 20 psychotic, threatening, harassing emails, to be a footing to this video. That I'm alleging. This officer was a witness. He read all those emails and he decided to ignore them. Let's just look at, I have all these emails here I want to share with you guys, but I really wanted to, right here, right? And I'll get into this later. But Section 137, fabricating evidence, submitting a false document to the court with the intent to deceive qualifies as fabricating evidence, the criminal act. Section 139, obstructing of justice. If the goal is to manipulate the court process or mislead the judge by submitting false costs, that is obstructing justice. Section 380, subsection 1, fraud. If someone lies or deceives the court by inflating cost or billing for service never provided, that's fraud, plain and simple. Penalty up to 14 years in prison if the value exceeds $5,000. Section 366, forgery. Creating or altering a document like a bill of cost to make appear legitimate, but it is not, especially to get paid, is considered forgery. Now, this is from ChatGPT, but more or less, this is from the Criminal Act, the Criminal Code Act, okay? And this officer wants to sit there and ignorantly tell me, oh, he's been an officer for 17 years and he's going to ignore these rules. And by the way, yeah, this officer went on, he went off work for 2 months for a herniated disc. And he was seen running his skating business online. And I'll share that with you guys. I have no problem. Again, this whole video is about this horrible, I'm on page 3 out of 5, so we can still have a bit more to go. But the whole purpose of this video is that because of officers like Tyrone Garner and his sergeant, Ronald Starch, conducting themselves the way they did, there needs to be cameras to hold them accountable for making statements that they have. And I have even gotten to these other emails from this constable. Garner took 2 months off of work from an injury, a herniated disc, but yet he shared a video of himself skating on ice, running his side business on July 4th and a few other occasions. Garner sent me another snarky email on July 18th saying there is no evidence of harassment, a fraudulent note, perjury, or stalking. He even suggested I was stalking him by simply searching his name in Google and seeing his social media accounts. Another useless email refusing to enforce the law and again twist my words. So let's look at this. Let's read this email on the 18th. Right, this is what we got to do. Unfortunately, officers don't want to enforce the law. They want to turn a blind eye. Here we go, July 18th at 5 o'clock. Hello, Daniel. I have just returned back to work today on modified light duties and contacting you as I mentioned I would upon my return. I have been catching up on the several emails you've sent my way over the course of me being off. And the emails, okay, there we go. You indicated multiple times in your emails that I was ignoring you, not taking this seriously and leaving you in the dark, which is inaccurate. I was off work due to a back injury I sustained. If you recall, I reached out to you when I first injured my back, acting in good faith, knowing I was not going to be returning to work in the near future, to update you on my conversation with John Ekping, only to be criticized by yourself for calling you on my day off. I made it quite clear in my follow-up email that you were absolutely right. In fact, that I should not be contacted you on my day off, and proceeded to advise you quite clearly that I would not be contacting you any further until I had returned to work. So I'm not sure where the confusion or the lack of clarity was. He called me on Canada Day too, and I'll get into that text message. Since then, you have sent me 27 emails. There wasn't 27 emails. There was about 20, and there was a handful of those emails that I was sharing, these psychotic emails from John David Ekping. In those other emails, I CC'd this officer when communicating with Ekping just to show just what a deranged lunatic he is and how unwilling he is to resolve anything. Since then, you have sent me 27 emails, several in which you've expressed your disappointment in myself and the Halton Regional Police for refusing to investigate your matter. I conducted an initial investigation on May 15th when I was dispatched to the call originally. I spoke to John Ekping at 3 a.m. He spoke to him at 3 a.m. And after speaking to him and going through the 36 emails and screenshots that you had originally sent me, there was zero evidence of harassment, a fraudulent note, perjury, or stalking. Those emails, screenshots consist of continuous back and forth conversations between John and yourself, at which no point did anyone make any threats, nor did neither of any of you request to cease communication. I told this officer on May 15th, I don't want to talk to him anymore. Why does it have to be in an email? I've told this lawyer many times, I don't want to talk to him. It's been nothing but threatening, harassing, stalking emails. And this just goes to show you how ignorant this officer is dealing with me. The fact that he's going to sit there and look at those emails and say there's no harassing, there's no threatening, there's no stalking, that's exactly why I did the last video, John David Ekping 20 psychotic emails. Because those were the emails I shared with this officer. And it's evident he has been harassing me, stalking me, threatening me. And this officer wants to respond to me like this. Secondly, there is no proof that Mr. Ekping has submitted fraudulent documents, although the amounts may be questionable, to whom they were submitted to outside of yourself. However, regardless of that, I informed you that I would look further into the matter upon my return. No, you didn't, because you know that $160,000 bill is fraudulent. And another reason why we need body cams with officers is because this officer said he was going to get a warrant on May 15th that he was going to investigate Ekping Young's bogus court cost. And then this is what I mean, he responds to me with this. However, regardless of that, I informed you that I would look further into your matter when I returned. I had also provided you with some advice in the meantime that you refused to accept, that I was learned the same advice you were given from my colleagues upon your visit to 3 District Burlington Station. That advice was my opinion to attend the Milton Court and lay a private prosecution. So yeah, I did go to the Halton Regional Police Station because this officer decided to take 2 months off of work, and they did not want to assign another officer to this complaint. You know, he already made his decision that day. He already closed it before he went off work. Before he took time off of work for this herniated disc where he's seen running his side business, I went to the station and I did speak to the officers that day, and I have the surveillance of that day. And at the end of it all, it was another waste of time. Officers refusing to simply do their duty that they took an oath that they would do, and they would enforce the law. At the station, I had two officers come out with a third officer and pretty much intimidate me and ask me to leave. And they were trying to intimidate me with that I was trespassing when I was simply there trying to get service of the police. And I can tell you guys right now, this dealing with Tyrone Gardner and the Halton Regional Police, it has honestly put the final nail in the coffin that this is why I cannot trust the police. And this is why I'll probably never call them again for anything. Because the Waterloo Police, the OPP, the Rama Police, and now the Halton Regional Police are conducting themselves this way. And this is another reason why I'm doing this video, to show you guys why the public has major trust issues with the police. Okay, why would I lay a private prosecution? Okay, we all seen how that doesn't work. That was done in the Kitchener-Waterloo Courthouse against John David Ekping Young and his client when there was clear evidence, just like the same evidence this officer seen, that they committed perjury, that they submitted a fraudulent document. And what happened at that courthouse? Jason Lim, assistant Crown Attorney, was directed by one of the senior Crown attorneys to stay the charges on the 4th appearance, and it was an absolute waste of time. And their deputy Crown attorney up there, Armin Sethi, refuses to do anything, refuses to speak to me, my recent emails. There's nothing but corruption in that courthouse. And private prosecutions don't work. And officers like Tyrone Gardner refuse to accept evidence that is clear as day from individuals who are harassing, threatening, and stalking. Thirdly, you have made several threats to file formal complaints to the Law Enforcement Complaints Agency, LECA, and write articles and letters to the media, which you are entitled to do, hence why those agencies, LECA, are put in place. However, continuously threatening to complain is not going to intimidate or force me to magically heal and return to work and continue to investigate because you feel I have failed to properly and fairly investigate and enforce the law in this matter. And that's exactly what he did. He put everything on hold. He made his decision. From reading his notes and his police report, which I'm going to share with you guys, and speaking to his sergeant, he already deemed this non-criminal before he went on his 2-month vacation of his injury. And he did fail to properly and fairly investigate because he had all the evidence. In your most recent email, you questioned my integrity and the fact that I was even injured, and making reference to my personal life outside of policing. Some may consider that stalking. Do you see how he turns this around on me? He's saying that I'm stalking him when John David Ekping Young sent me that psychotic email. He's hired this private investigator. He's followed me around. He knows where I work, which was it was all lies and gaslighting. And if this officer doesn't want the public to see stuff about him online, then maybe he shouldn't be posting things online. And especially if he's off on an injury with a herniated a herniated disc in his back. Why is he running a skating business, and why is there videos online of him skating while he's injured, accepting money through his injuries and his short-term disability within his benefits, and he's out there skating? And I just simply want him to do his job. And he couldn't do that. He turned on me. He turned things against me, twisted my words. But just for your clarification, yes, I am able to skate around and blow a whistle, but not healed enough to be wearing a 40 pounds of equipment and be jammed into a police car for 12 hours a day. Hence why I have only been medically cleared to return to unmodified duties. I am not quite sure how being able to coach yet being well enough to return to work is a contradiction that raises concern about the seriousness with which this matter is being handled when I was not medically cleared to return to work at that time, with an exclamation mark. Regardless, since having the opportunity to read through your several emails that are clearly display your frustration, entitlement, and distrust, coupled with your multiple references to my personal life and the fact that you have filed a formal complaint, I am left with no other option but to be removed from investigating this matter or communicating with yourself any further, as it raises a conflict of interest. My advice would be to refer to the previous option advice on laying a private prosecution. This officer sends me this. Oh, he's got to remove himself from the investigation. He removed himself from the investigation on May 23rd when he took a 8 weeks break. He never had any intentions on helping me. And that conversation I had with him on May 15th, and the 10 emails I sent him on John David Ekstrom's psychotic conduct, he was going to help me. He said that he would have to get a warrant to investigate this fraudulent $160,000. And he's going to ignorantly sit here and put in an email, oh, there's no wrongdoing, right? Which is absolutely crap. I filed a complaint with Lika, which do not work. And if you guys are considering filing a complaint with Lika, don't even waste your time, because they do not work. I have filed 4 complaints with Lika and the OPIRD since that vicious beating I took from Constable Evan Gorman, and that fraudulent home insurance claim where my ex got a $10,000 check and the sergeant up in Waterloo refused to investigate. I filed complaints with Lika and they were all dismissed, and the OPIRD, and they just do not work. You guys can just look at Ontario Audit's video for an example. You know, he filed a complaint against another Halton Region officer, and they accepted his complaint. Surprisingly, they accepted it, okay? But when you watch that video, and I'll show you guys a picture of that video, and I recommend watching that video if you want to get some information on how Lika complaints work and how they're handled. That officer who did get, I guess, disciplined by Lika, in that video from Ontario Audits, they stay on his file for what, a year or two, and then they get removed, and then the officer who has a complaint on file is still eligible to apply for higher rankings. So in the big picture, filing complaints with Lika do not work. Lika assigns senior investigator Lonnie Ratchford, former 20-year investigator with the Toronto Police Service. And an interesting fact about Ty, Ron, and Lonnie, these are not their full names. These are nicknames. And I could be wrong, but we all know Ty is Tyrone, Ron is Ronald, and Lonnie is Lawrence. Why are public servants using nicknames? This is a common trend. You're a public servant, you should be using your full legal name and not these nicknames. If people want to look you up or have a bad interaction, you having a nickname, it's going to be hard for people to find information, right? So this is my complaint. Officer Tyrone Garner's failure to uphold the law. Constable Tyrone Gardner of the Halton Regional Police has demonstrated gross negligence of duty by refusing to provide police service and enforce the law. Despite overwhelming evidence of criminal activity, on May 14, 2025, I contacted the Halton Regional Police for urgent assistance regarding a lawyer, John David Ekping, who has been relentlessly harassing me, committing perjury, submitting fraudulent documents to the court, including a $160,000 bill for legal fees that were never paid by his client. This stems from a family court matter I was wrongfully dragged into, a case I had no business ever being a part of. On the same day, Ekping sent me another disturbing and unprovoked email in which he admitted to stalking me by hiring a private investigator, further escalating any already dangerous pattern of intimidation. And he hired a private investigator because he refuses to accept money. This is how psychotic and unhinged John David Ekping is. And you guys seen the email in the previous video. He hires a private investigator to follow me around for what? Because he's refusing to accept money? This is how crazy this whole situation is. Has my bank accounts frozen. Sitting there playing stupid, gaslighting that, I'm refusing to repay back this bogus court cost. All I've been doing is trying to repay it back. Unlike him, who was refusing to pay back $47,000 to his client in Legal Aid Ontario. I spoke with Constable Garner on May 15th for over an hour. He acknowledged the situation and said he would help, yet his actions have contradicted that promise. He claimed a warrant was needed to verify the fraudulent bill. An absurd excuse with a simple request for documentation would be enough. When I pushed back, he downplayed the stalking admission and told me he wouldn't lay charges. I had to remind him what the Criminal Code of Canada says about stalking. Okay? Further troubling, Constable Garner sent an email falsely claiming I told him I was becoming unhinged, a complete fabrication. He also accused me of lying about the nature of the family court matter and my relationship to the other party. Again, total falsehoods. Those are not mistakes, they are misleading and defamatory statements from a police officer in a position of authority. Despite claiming he was off work due to an injury, Constable Garner has been visibly active with his side business. If he can run a side business, he can uphold the duties as a sworn officer. Instead, he is choosing to become substantial evidence of criminal behavior, including perjury, harassment, fraud, and stalking. Let me be very clear. This is not a civil matter. It is criminal. A fraudulent $160,000 bill was submitted to the court. I have tried for months to make payments, but Ekping refuses to accept them and instead had my bank accounts frozen. This is financial abuse, plain and simple, and it is taking a severe toll on my mental health and livelihood. Constable Garner refused to act, combined with making false statements and misrepresenting the facts, amounts to deterioration of duty. His behavior highlights why Halton Regional Police officers urgently need body cameras at all times to ensure accountability and prevent this kind of misconduct from continuing to be unchecked. I believe I am being discriminated against due to my past convictions in Halton Region, yet no one deserves to be ignored, gaslit, and re-traumatized by the very people sworn to protect them. The public has a right to know what's happening here. There must be an investigation. I would like to submit supporting documents of harassing, stalking, and threats that Constable Garner has received. So that was my complaint to Lika. And here's Lonnie's response. Lonnie Ratchford. This is his response. And this is dated, what's this dated? Let's see, August 14th. Lonnie says, the Law Enforcement and Complaints Agency, Lika, has reviewed your complaint and determined it to be conduct complaint about officers with the Halton Regional Police Service between May 15th and May 30th. In your complaint, you allege that the involved officer failed to thoroughly investigate your complaint to avoid complaint of fraud against the lawyer. Sections 153 and 158, 1D2 of the Community Safety and Policing Acts permit the complaints director not to cause a complaint to be investigated if it is not in the public's interest to do so. Having regard of all the circumstances, rules 10.9 and 10 of the LICA Rules of Practice further states that in determining whether to screen a complaint for investigation, the complaints director shall have regard to the public interest. In addition, it is not in the public's interest to screen a complaint that does not on its face disclose the breach of the act or code of conduct. The officer did conduct a thorough investigation and determined the situation to be a civil matter. Your concerning regarding the action involved lawyer would be directed to the Law Society of Ontario, which we know doesn't work. Filing complaints with the Law Society doesn't work. They rarely do. For your reasons noted above, the complaints director determined it is not in the public's interest to cause your complaint to be investigated. Accordingly, your file is now closed, and please be advised the Community Safety Policing Act, our governing legislation, does not provide an appeal from the classification and screening complaints conducted by LICA. Accordingly, our file is now closed. This is the crap I'm talking about. Filing complaints with LICA do not work. Ronnie Ratchford, Tyrone Garner, Ronald Strach, they were all in possession of harassing, threatening, stalking emails, fraudulent documents, committing perjury, and they refused to enforce the law. This is the problem with LICA. Filing complaints do not work when you've got former officers, handling complaints against officers that are in clear breach of their duty of upholding the law. I've already read the sections of which this lawyer, John David Ekping-Young, has violated in the criminal act. And this officer doesn't want to uphold it. All right? So this is why I'm doing these videos, so the public can see actually what they're suppressing. And again, this is why the public has major trust issues with the police. And this is why the public has major trust issues with LICA. This experience with the Halton Regional Police this past summer confirms you can't trust the police. Tyrone Garner simply refused to do his duty of a police officer and apply the laws John David Ekping-Young clearly violated. He twisted things I said and misrepresented them in emails he wrote. And this is exactly why every constable in Ontario, especially the Halton Regional Police, needs to be equipped with body-wear cam. And I think that the Halton Regional Police, they ran like a test pilot, and for some reason they did not follow through with adding these cameras to their equipment, right? And I'm very surprised that most other stations did, and I'll get into those. Look at my ex at the family court trial. Foolishly submitted an exhibit, page 9 of 12, from her traveler's insurance, where she showed that she got a check for $10,000 and from a fraudulent home insurance claim, which funded her bogus and fraudulent family court matter she dragged me through for 3 years. Kitchener local senior judge, Justice Michael Gibson, denied my request for a list of items she claimed and she got paid for. She claimed was damaged and she got paid for. I admitted to breaking a $500 door in the presence of the Waterloo Regional Police Service. What else did she claim? Why aren't these judges and why aren't the police and why aren't the prosecutors investigating that fraudulent home insurance claim? Because in reality, they're all in on it to pin me to the wall. Someone who is innocent, someone who had no business ever being in family court, let alone a trial. a rigged trial. And then I got to endure the verbal and written abuse from John David Ekping-Young 2 years, 3 years after all of this. My ex submitted a fraudulent claim to her home insurance, which is fraud over $5,000. And the Waterloo Regional Police refused to investigate, and their sergeant, Linda Chamberlain, told me over the phone she refuses to investigate, and she's not going to direct her constables to investigate and uphold the law, which is complete crap. Why are we paying these police officers hundreds of thousands of dollars every year when they're refusing to do their job and the duties that they were sworn to simply uphold the law? This is crap. And nobody should be surprised that people are going public and making these videos in a factual and honest manner. The Waterloo Regional Police refused to investigate that home insurance claim, that fraudulent $10,000 home insurance claim. Okay? I spoke with Sergeant Linda Chamberlain, who also refused to investigate this fraudulent home insurance claim over $5,000. She suggests I file a complaint with Lika. I did, and that got dismissed. I filed a complaint against Sergeant Leslie Legace, who witnessed Constable Evan Gorman driving reckless, speeding, slamming on the brakes, who knocked me unconscious. I was left in a holding cell with severe injuries. I was offered no medical attention for nearly an hour and 20 minutes. I filed a complaint with the OPRD, and they dismissed that. And you should see this complaint, and I'll be doing a separate video on why filing complaints with Lika do not work. And you should see this little mini Bible that they had sent me, making sure they crossed all their T's and dotted their I's. Sergeant Leslie Legace was a witness to the assaults and the injuries I sustained during transportation with Constable Evan Gorman. And there was no cameras. You know, he was a witness to that. And he never commented about that. He also left me in a holding cell for an hour and 20 minutes. And at one point, he said to me, when he came up to the glass, when I asked for medical attention, he told me, "We never did this to you," referring to the OPP, referring to my obvious injuries, which I had 2 head concussions, serious nerve damage, and a torn up elbow that's never healed properly. He left me in a holding cell. And he failed to provide simple care and uphold the duty. This is why filing complaints with Lika do not work. You know, Constable Evan Gorman of the Rama Police assaulted, injured, and hospitalized me, and he was charged in 2023 for assaulting me, and those charges were dismissed 2 months later. I filed a complaint with Rama Police, and the police chief said he did nothing wrong. So that right there shows you guys filing complaints against police do not work. They do not. And all these different forms, you file it with the actual police station, with the police chief, with the OIPRD, which is now Lika. They all get dismissed. They are trying to keep their litigation and their insurance rates down by doing these things to people. And again, this is a perfect examples why the public has major trust issues with the police and why all police services need to be equipped with body cam. And I did do a little bit of research, and finally the Rama Police did get body cam this past May 2025, which is great considering the history Constable Evan Gorman has with falsely arresting people and then goes above and beyond, assaults and injures those people. He's detained. So it's great finally Rama Police has these body cams. Apparently the OPP this year, April, they got body cams. And the Waterloo Regional Police, I think they also got body cams. But the Halton Regional Police do not have body cams. And they need to be equipped with them. John David Ekping-Young. What I went through with Tyrone Garner and the Halton Regional Police put the nail in the coffin with trusting police. They refused to perform their duty of upholding the law. They swore under oath that they would do. John David Ekping-Young clearly committed the offenses of fabricating evidence, obstructing justice, fraud, forgery under sections 137, 139, 380 subsection 1 and 366 of the Canadian Criminal Code. The whole message of this video really is people need to be mindful of these type of dealings with the police. A lot of it's just smoke and mirrors. It really is. You know, it's just the police refuse to do their job, and they're being protected, you know, by their superiors, by their colleagues, by LICA. And then you get falsely charged, then you got the prosecutors that are protecting them. Those prosecutors involved in my criminal case against the Rama Police and Constable Evan Gorman, they did nothing but drag me through hell. And what they made me go through, the amount of money I had to spend to defend myself for charges that never happened, was absolutely crap. That assistant crown attorney that was assigned to my case on April 2nd, she was seen being giddy. She was dancing around in her seat. She tried to pull so many fast ones, trying to delay the case. She did delay the case that day in the morning. We had to put it over to lunch. And then when lunch came, she tried to sneak in some additional documents. And it was insane what they put me through at that, you know. So it's like they just don't work. There's just a major corruption going on in this country, in this province. And because of Tyrone Gardner and his Sergeant Ron Starch and even Lonnie Ratchford, I've lost complete confidence in the police. And when it's evident you're being harassed, you're being threatened, you're being stalked, and the police do nothing about it, that is concerning. On July 1st, Tyrone Garner called me by mistake. I called him back. He didn't answer. I said, hey, I got a missed call from you. This was at 4:18. I reached out to you because I truly believed you would help me. Instead, the moment you spoke with John David Ekpignan, you turned your back on me and you took his side. He's playing games and you're falling for it. I don't know what kind of lies he told you that made you ignore everything I've been trying to show you. I am not refusing to make payments. I have been trying since September of 2024, and I provided all the evidence to prove that. Meanwhile, he's back at it again, sending me more emails this weekend that have obviously absolutely nothing to do with the court proceedings. I forwarded them to you, and once again, you ignored them. I came to you for help. I trusted you, and this is how you respond to someone who's already been dragged through enough already. You left me hanging when I needed support the most. Okay? Why are you refusing to help me and refusing to enforce the law? I'm simply asking for your help. And that's when I had to remind this 7-year veteran police officer about the criminal code that this lawyer has been breaching. He's been violating. I thought you were going to call back. I thought you were going to call when you refused. I thought you were going to call when you returned to work. That was 6 weeks ago. This lawyer has ruined my life by submitting fraudulent documents, being dragged through family court when I was never married with, had children, or lived with the applicant. She withheld a police report for 2 years, admitting I was a tenant, withheld the landlord-tenant eviction application, confirming I was a tenant, and you're refusing to help me and enforce the law. I don't understand the mentality of one of the hardest working electricians this province has seen, and now I'm on the verge of being bankrupt and homeless because of an abusive, crooked lawyer. And you're just going to stand there, watch, and do nothing? Hi, Daniel. I have not been ignoring you. I'm still off work with a herniated disc in my back, and I won't be returning till late July on modified duties. I had to charge and access my work phone to reply to an email regarding freedom of information request, which was from me. Your number was the last number I called on my phone. I accidentally tapped the number under recent calls. My apologies for that. I will be in touch when I return to work and when I've had an opportunity to read through your 26 emails I see that are waiting for me. I responded, I've been patiently waiting for a response since May 22nd, 2025. Apparently the occurrence I reported had been closed. So officer's playing games with me as if he's going to be looking into it when he's already concluded. I have the police report. He already concluded it was not criminal. The 18th, you got that. I reached out to Sergeant Starch on May 29th. Good morning, Sergeant Starch. I'm reaching out to you because I'm simply trying to obtain the public service from the Halton Region Police is supposed to provide. The proper investigation of multiple serious criminal offenses committed by John David Ekpingham. Despite providing Constable Tyrone Gardner with substantial evidence, he has refused to investigate adequately. This is not a civil matter. It is escalated to clear criminal conduct, and the failure to act is deeply troubling. John David Ekpingham submitted an affidavit admitting his client paid him $7,000, yet he issued a fraudulent bill of $160,000. This is a textbook example of fraud. When I spoke to Constable Garner several weeks ago, he stated that verifying his claim would require an investigation, yet no investigation has been initiated. Why is that? In addition, there is documented harassment and an admission of stalking. John David Ekpingham hired a private investigator to follow me, despite me sending him 9 months worth of emails trying to resolve payment issues. That behavior goes beyond professional conduct. It's obsessive and criminal. I'm extremely concerned that the Halton Police Service appears to be protecting someone who has already committed perjury, fraud, harassment, and stalking. At this point, it feels like internal basis may be influencing the lack of action. And if that's not the case, then I urge you to prove it through transparent accountability and an immediate investigation. I'm extremely concerned that the Halton Police Service, this situation and the complete failure to address it is exactly why the public trust in policing continues to erode. You have documented evidence, admissions under oath. And being a citizen begging for help, yet still nothing is being done. Additionally, I want to formally raise a concern about the woman at the front desk at your police station. Her repeated rude, dismissive behavior towards me is unacceptable. I am entitled to respectful service as a member of the public. I would like her name so that I would like to file a formal complaint against her conduct. If no action is taken by her office, I will have no choice but to escalate this matter with Lika, and I will be going public with a full story. This is not the path I want to take. All I ever asked was for help. And what does this sergeant respond? He sends me a link to Lika and a link to the Law Society of Ontario. And I said to him, I responded, this is how you respond to my emails? It's an absolute disgrace. Instead of dismissing legitimate concerns, why don't you just do your job, investigate the information I provided? This level of negligence is pathetic, and it's exactly why public trust in police is at an all-time low. You wonder why people have no faith in law enforcement. It's because of sergeants like you and constables like Tyrone who treat serious matters like a joke. When I spoke with Sergeant Ronald Strach from the Halton Regional Police on or around May 27th or May 29th, 2025, over the phone, he told me that the only reason I want the Halton Regional Police to charge John David Ekpingham so that I could get out of this bogus $60,000 court order. And I thought that was absolutely ridiculous coming from a sergeant, okay? Because is it not common sense that even if someone gets charged, you still can't get out of a court order? Fraud, perjury, harassment, threatening, stalking are crimes. Okay? That has nothing to do with my court order. So I thought that was absolutely ridiculous hearing this from a sergeant. Okay? I'm simply asking for the Halton Region Police's assistant, and they couldn't even do that. Okay? So, asking for this sergeant's help, and that was his response to me over the phone, concludes to even more why every conversation with police need to be recorded. And it's just that simple. Yeah. Like, it's crazy. And you know what? You know what this all comes down to? This all comes down to Justice Michael Gibson's endorsement from that family court matter. The only judge sitting in the Superior Court from Ontario who has his judicial training from the Canadian Armed Forces. And all of these people, I'm pretty sure, are aware of that. And they refuse to overstep his decision. When that judge straight up lied in his endorsement. He did. Saying that I called the applicant, I emailed her, I breached my temporary restraining order, I was not a tenant. I never called her. She admitted that. She emailed herself. I was a tenant. She withheld a police report that this judge read. And I never breached my temporary restraining order. I was never charged. I was never warned. Why would this judge intentionally provide contradictive and intentional misleading information and statements on that endorsement? Because he did not like me. You know, I had absolutely no business ever being in family court. And that courthouse has done nothing but railroad me. And it all comes down to that judge. It really does. The corruption I've experienced in that courthouse, you think the Minister of Justice would be interested. You think the Attorney General would be interested. You think the Canadian Judicial Council would be interested. You think our MPs would be interested. None of them are. No, they're not. And it's sickening what I'm going through and what I continue to go through. And, you know, I've reached out to Halton Regional Police and another police service who fails to provide service. So the reason of this video is that it's pretty evident, you know, the amount of questionable conduct from police and the Halton Regional Police, that all the Halton Regional Police need to opt in to the body wear cam. All the police should have body cams. Why would they opt out of it? It seems suspicious. What do they have to hide? Policing should be transparent. And if you opt out of wearing body cam, then that raises question of integrity and honesty. So, yeah, I'm really disappointed in the Halton Regional Police. I'm really disappointed dealing with Tyrone Gardner of the Halton Regional Police, who sat there, said he was going to help me. He ended up telling me at one point that I lied to him and said that I wasn't dating this woman in family court, and that was an outright lie. That I never made that statement. And had he had a body cam on, that would be confirmed. And he may have never made that statement, or he would have been caught providing misleading statements. So, pretty disappointed in the Halton Regional Police and their sergeant and this officer. And that whole day I went to the station and they intimidated me when I was simply trying to get service. And they turned everything around on me. So, the public needs to be very mindful dealing with the police. And all the public should have body cams. And all the public should be recording their interactions with the police, good or bad. And it's only in the police's best interest that they conduct themselves accordingly to avoid this type of legitimate criticism. So that's my video. That's my experience with the Halton Regional Police, who refused to uphold the law against a psychotic, unhinged lawyer who is currently being prosecuted by the Law Society Tribunal for this similar type of abusive behavior. And this officer is passing the buck of his duties, of his job, to suggest him to go file a private prosecution, which I would never waste my time ever again. And I would never speak with the police again. Ever since that beating from Constable Evan Gorman, and then dealing with the OPP, the Waterloo Police, now the Halton Regional Police, you know, don't get me wrong. You know, I got nothing against the police. We need the police. We need good police who aren't going to abuse their powers, who aren't going to engage in police brutality, and who are going to simply uphold the law, what they get paid to do. So, you know, just be mindful, people, and try to have a camera recording these incidents and document everything, because this is what you could face. Your concerns and stuff just get buried. And then when you file a complaint with LICA, you got an officer, a former officer like Lonnie Ratchford, who just downplays everything. So, thank you guys for watching. These videos are never easy to make. I feel like I always lose a bit of me when I'm doing these videos. I hope one day there's accountability. And again, this all comes down to dealing with Canada's most corrupted family court case in Canadian history, which I was involved in. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching. This has been another video from Let's Talk About It, and why all police services in Ontario, particularly the Halton Regional Police Service, need to be equipped with body cam at all times with all interactions. So officers can be held accountable. And when they want to twist words, like Constable Garner said I did, saying I've become unhinged, when I never said that. I said this lawyer, is becoming unhinged, is a perfect example, of just holding officers accountable. If you were a police officer and you sworn to uphold the law, and you have all this evidence of a unhinged individual doing this, then do the right thing. Every day I go out my door here, okay, I'm like, what am I going to expect? Is someone going to be there now? Is there going to be another application left at my door that judges are going to ignorantly ignore the law of proper service that needs to be handed to an adult? I had a vexatious litigant application dropped off at my front door, and 3 of Kitchener's top senior judges all turned a blind eye to the law. John David Ekpin-Young never confirmed any of his motions. Motions need to be confirmed. This was brought up to all these judges. They turned a blind eye to the law because they are protecting this family court trial judge's endorsement that is riddled with lies. It is riddled with errors of law and facts. And that's all they're trying to do. So, thank you guys for watching.